Hello guys, and welcome to my hybrid warden build. This is a beast of a hybrid warden build. It has got incredible healing power. It has got incredible burst damage. It is a mix between a frost warden and a burst two-handed greatsword warden. I really like this build. It hits really hard. It's got a lot of staying power, a lot of sustain, and a lot of healing. Honestly, I don't know what to tell you guys. Just take a look at this footage here and look at the firepower of this bad boy. We are rocking 5.9k weapon spell damage with almost 20k max stat pools. On top of it, we've got nearly 2k magicka and stamina recovery. Access to all of the abilities that we want to use because we're a hybrid. This is an absolutely fantastic build. I've really enjoyed playing it in PvP, and I found that it was just great at all kinds of combat. So I'm going to say it's a mixed combat build. It's great for everything. If you guys like this and you want to see some more, hit that like button. If you guys are new here, hit that subscribe button. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at that build. Alright guys, so let's take a look at the build. So to begin, we are a Dark Elf on this Warden. Dark Elf this patch is by far your best race choice for a hybrid, and the big reason I think for that is because hybrids are very effective essentially in PvP. That's kind of their best place in the game, and Dark Elf stacks flat weapon spell damage as well as flat max magicka, max stamina. Orc is going to stack max stamina as well as weapon damage, but Dark Elf, yet again, is going to get a little bit more damage. And the sustain end of a hybrid isn't really the focus. You really want to focus on that damage end. And then Khajiit this patch coming in with the crit bonuses. Also a tempting choice, but yet again, the flat weapon damage, spell damage will outperform the crit in PvP. So I think that Dark Elf is definitely your best bet. It's getting some big buffs for hybrids this patch, giving you almost 2k magicka stamina. So taking a look at the build, guys, yeah, this build is rocking. Oh my god. Look at these stats. Almost 20k magicka stamina and 23k HP. It's been a while since I've been on a hybrid that doesn't have Shackle Breaker on that has nearly 20k magicka stamina. That's a really high value, and I attribute this to the big buffs that Dark Elf has got. Really sweet, and this is why I think Dark Elf needs to be the race for this build. 23k HP is plenty for this build. We have got a ton of healing power, so we can really flex that HP value. Now, the sustain on this build, guys, is also really awesome. Looking at our front bar sustain, we've got almost 1700 magicka recovery and 1870 stamina recovery. Very low health recovery, as it is not a focus of this build, so we don't really invest into that. And then on our back bar, our sustains are a little bit lower because we don't have a skill to give us that buff, but that's all right because we do a lot of blocking on the back bar anyway. So essentially, guys, this build has crazy sustain. For the amount of weapon damage that we're pushing, plus these sustain pools, this build is incredibly effective at long-term fighting, and it can really just not run out of juice. I'm not kidding. It's very good at not running out of juice. So taking a look at our weapon damage when we buff up, and I'm just going to buff up with my spell crit buff as well. Almost 5.3k weapon damage. When we have our infused Frost Staff enchant, we get up to 5.9k plus weapon and spell damage. With a couple Divine's traits, we could easily push 6k weapon spell damage on this build at 30% crit rate, 34% weapon crit, and 29% spell crit with our buff here. Really nice for the hybrid, I think. We got a nice even crit rate, huge amounts of weapon spell damage. I actually really love this setup for the Warden. It's very nice. Honestly, this is a crazy amount of damage to push, and it's just making hybrids look so good in this coming patch. Now, taking a look at our defensive stats, we have got just over 23, almost 24k physical spell resist on our Frost Staff bar. So we're very bulky on our back bar here, and then on our Greatsword bar, we're just over 20k physical spell resist. So we've got a nice amount of bulk on this build, coming in at just under 2,300 crit resist. So a nice amount of crit resist to go with this as well. We are in 5 medium armor, and we have 3 well fitted on, so we got a lot of dodge rolling going on this build too. So really great defensive stats to have that very strong Frost Staff block. And the pretty decent defensive stats with the medium armor. We're going to be pretty hard to kill on this Warden. Taking a look at the Mundus that we're running, the Warrior Mundus, of course, this is going to give us weapon and spell damage because of the Pelinal set that we're using. And then for the drink that we're using, we have the Magicka Stamina Recovery drink. this is your best bet for the build. It's going to give you 500 magicka and stamina recovery. Now, we could go for the health recovery here, but I did not because I am a vampire. Right now, we are a stage 1 vampire. However, for this build, you should definitely, I think, try going for a stage 4 vampire on this spec. It really pushes your magicka stamina recovery really nice and high. Vampirism is really nice for a hybrid build, just from a sustained point of view. So I would recommend stage 4 vampirism. I'm sorry I didn't get it up. I was in a rush to get this build video done, so we have a little bit less regen because we are not stage 4. And then finally, guys, for the potions that you want to use on this build, definitely go with the tri-stat potions. They are so great. We've got all our buffs covered. We're going to get a ton of sustain from these bad boys. You can switch your potion up, but that's only if you're going to go for a little bit of a skill change up, and we'll get to that on the skills page. Alright, so let's take a look at the gear on this bad boy. So we are doing a big weapon damage stack build. So the first set we're going to take a look at is the Pelinal set. Max health, stamina recuv, magicka recovery, and then our weapon and spell damage become the highest of the two values. We are stacking weapon damage in medium armor, so this gives us a huge spell damage pool to go with it. The sustain on both ends is super great, and the HP that it gives is nice too, because it allows us to omit HP from our food, because we get some HP from here, as well as some from the tri-stat Hacky Joes. Taking a look at our next set, we have got a single Balorgs and a single Molag Kenna, and these are both for the weapon damage. Now, these both give weapon and spell damage, but you could go for a Veladrith here for the weapon damage, because of course, Pelinals will turn that weapon damage into spell damage for you too. And this is just slotted for those one-piece bonuses. A nice amount of weapon damage coming out of this here, so really important for the hybrid to have this. And then finally, guys, we have got Hunding's Rage on, and this is to give us not only a flat amount of weapon damage, but the reason I picked Hunding's was actually for the weapon crit. A big reason why I wanted to do this was because I had tried other sets that had other combinations that were a little bit more weapon damage, but we didn't have enough weapon critical, and I had to run the weapon crit buff. If we run the Hunding's Rage here, we can essentially omit the weapon crit buff, only run the spell crit buff with the weapon power buff for Pelinals, and we have all of the damage that we need, and it's nice and rounded. So this essentially is covering our weapon crit buff and then giving us the weapon damage to turn into spell damage as well. So a really great set for this build, and we are not running anything on swap. We have the full Hunding's Rage on both pieces for this build. You could run a swap if you want, but we have a lot of heals on our back bar too, so I think it's better to go for Hundings on both bars for this particular build. The traits on this build, guys, the Greatsword, of course, is Nirnhoned. Nice amount of weapon damage coming from that, very important. I went with the Oblivion damage glyph because we have a lower crit rate. It's only around 30% on this build, which is kind of like a heavy armor crit rate. However, you could go for any enchant you want here. A Frost enchant would actually be an interesting choice, simply because you get a lot of immobilizes when the enchant goes off if someone's inside one of your fields. On the staff, we have got infused with the weapon spell damage enchant. This is very important for the hybrid. I think we're going to get a lot of weapon spell damage out of this, allowing us to push over 5.9k weapon spell damage. So this is really nice, this staff here. And then on the jewelry, guys, it is full infused with weapon damage. Also very important for the hybrid build. Now, I know realistically getting gold Hunding's Rage jewelry is going to be incredibly expensive. I would recommend trying to at least go for purple for this. It is well worth it, especially for the hybrid build. And then finally, for the gear, we have got 4 pieces of impenetrable on and 3 well-fitted. And I went with more impen than well-fitted simply because we have the Frost Staff and we're going to be doing a lot of blocking with it. So we have a nice amount of mixed bulk on this build. So I felt like having more impen overall would be the better choice. But yet again, the 3 well-fitted because we're going to be doing a lot of roll dodging and we don't want to neglect that at all. And then the enchants, of course, are all tri-stat Hacky Joes. Who said hybrid builds were cheap, right, guys? I would highly recommend the Hacky Joes. Not only do they allow you to omit HP from your food because they cover your HP there, but they give you both magicka and stamina. You just get a lot of stat out of this, and it's really worthwhile for your hybrid. All right, guys, so let's take a look at the abilities that we're using on this build. So the first skill that we have is Reverse Slice, and this is going to be your primary execute for your build, and it is a splash execute as well. I chose to go with the AoE morph on this build simply because we have a lot of AoE fields on this build, a lot of AoE ultimates, and a lot of AoE damage, so we have the AoE execute to fit in with all that. It will be a devastating smack if you get someone low health and it'll splash onto an opponent. And the next skill we have is Critical Rush, and I just want to show this off because we're on a hybrid build. 7,300 damage on the Critical Rush. Absolutely beautiful tooltip for this ability. This is our primary gap closer, and it's going to be a big chunk of damage. On top of it, we can pair the Crit Rush with our Subterranean Assault on the gap close to deal a huge amount of damage while closing that gap. So a really, really great gap closer to pair with that skill as well. The next skill that we have is Bird of Prey, and this is going to be access to Minor Berserk for the passive slot here, and then of course this is the Major Expedition on this build as well. The Major Expedition I think is important here because we don't get it from any other source, and mobility is important for PvP. So this is important not only for the passive, but that movement speed too. The next ability we have is Rally. This is going to be your only stamina-based heal. It's a great burst heal and a good heal over time, and it will give us the Major Brutality, which will boost our weapon damage up, translating over into spell damage as well, giving us that nice big damage value. And then, of course, if you wait to cast it after you've activated Rally, you get a nice big burst heal from this as well. The next skill that we have is Subterranean Assault, and we talked about this before. This is going to be your big boy burst move. I went with Sub Assault because it costs stamina, and this build had more stamina than Magicka to work with when I was kind of putting the skills together, when I was choosing between stamina and Magicka morphs for an ability like this one. So I was like, okay, we got a little bit more stam. Let's take Sub Assault. And then on top of it, our burst is coming from the Greatsword. We got a lot of wear and tear from our Frost abilities and Frost Staff, but the big boy burst is on that Greatsword. So we want that Major Fracture so that when the burst comes down, it's hitting as hard as possible. Really nice tooltip on this ability. For a hybrid to have a 16k Sub Assault is just rude, man. That's incredible. Anyway, taking a look at the ultimate that we have here, and it is Flawless Dawnbreaker. This is definitely the way to go. 8% total weapon damage from slotting this. It's just going to make your entire front bar stronger and hit harder. We've got a pretty decent tooltip on it too, coming in at 15k Flawless. This will not stun your opponent. However, our other ultimate will. But Flawless can be nice because we have the off-balance stun and we're running the Frost Staff, so we can easily pick a nice roll dodge into a Frost Staff stun, and then or even a Greatsword heavy stun, and then hit them with the Flawless as well. So I really like this ultimate for the passive slot, and it gives you an option for that big burst when you need it. Now, taking a look at our Frost Staff bar, the first skill that we have is Unstable Wall of Frost. And we went with Unstable Wall because it is, of course, the bigger morph, a 60% snare on this Frost field. And I just buffed up with the Greatsword. Looking at this tooltip coming in at 2,260 every 1 second. That's pretty freaking good for this skill. We, of course, aren't in light armor, so light armor will have a more penetration, but we have a really nice high tooltip on 30% crit, 60% snare, absolutely brutal. This is a massive field, so it will trap lots of people, and a chilled enemy will become immobilized. So that's why I said you can always go for the Frost enchant on your Greatsword to give you more access to that immobilized off the chill effect that this will help you deal. And I just realized I said Unstable Wall. This is supposed to be Blockade of Frost. The bigger field is better. This is the wrong morph, but I don't have time to fix it, so we're going to leave it at that. The next ability that we have is Winter's Revenge, and we're just going to look at this tooltip on our Greatsword bar because our Winter's Revenge has a nasty tooltip. 3,000 damage when we swap to the Greatsword bar on Winter's Revenge. Absolutely brutal AoE field. It's only a 30% snare, but it lasts for 12 seconds, and it's very large. This paired with our Blockade of Frost is going to give us so much AoE coverage, and lots of AoE debilitate, snare, immobilize. This is an incredible combination, and I really like this on the hybrid, having that Greatsword burst kit with that really powerful Frost Mage snare kit. Really perfect, in my opinion, for a hybrid Warden build. And then for the next skill we have, guys, Lotus Blossom. And this is access to our Major Prophecy crit buff, which is important for this build to give us that even crit rate. And then, of course, it's going to give us healing on our light and heavy attacks. The healing that this gives is nice. It will give us some resource return, but that's pretty well covered by vines. And you could actually drop the healing because you don't really need this on the build. And the reason I say that you can drop this skill is because if you wanted to add a different skill to this build, this is where your flex spot will be, and you can essentially cover that spell crit buff with your potion, and you just won't get stamina back from your potion and run a max health a max magicka, and a spell crit pot. And that's just an option there if you want to run, like, for example, the Shimmering Shield here, or whatever other ability you want to add to your hybrid if you don't like the kit or feel like this kit needs something more. And then finally, guys, our primary magicka heal is Living Trellis, and we've been over this heal. Absolutely incredible ability. We'll look at the tooltip on the Frost Staff because that's where we'll be casting it from. So when we cast the Vines, it will heal us for 2,600 health every time we take damage, and then when we use the burst heal, we get a 6k burst heal. This not only will be easy healing for us, healing over time, and a burst heal, but easy access to major mending for the Warden as well, giving us a very strong Living Trellis into Rally combo when we get that huge powerful heal off. And you guys will see in the footage the healing power of this build, and Living Trellis is really important in it. So I really like this combination. Living Trellis Rally, absolutely fantastic for the hybrid Warden. And then for the armor skill, we have got Ice Fortress, Bread and Butter Warden. We get physical spell resistance and minor protection. Absolutely fantastic. And we can give this buff to our allies as well, save the minor protection, which is pretty sweet too. And then for the ultimate on this bar, guys, we have Permafrost. And this is a nasty ultimate on this build. We have got so much AoE coverage on this build. Permafrost has got a super nasty 6k tooltip on our greatsword bar every 1 second. 70% snare. We get major protection while we're in it for the 8 seconds. And damaging an enemy 3 times in the storm will stun them. So we actually don't have a stun outside the off-balance stun and our ultimate. These are our only stuns on this build. However, we got a lot of debilitate with the snares and the immobilize. So I felt like we didn't need to have a super heavy stun-centric kit, especially because we have the Permafrost, which especially 1vx is such a powerful ultimate slash stun tool. And it gives you a huge stun that any other stun just wouldn't even really kind of come up to. Maybe a time stop, but there you go. I really like Permafrost on this build. Mixed with the Greatsword Burst kit, it is very dirty. You lay down the ice fields and then you Greatsword Burst kit in a Permafrost. That's some tough stuff to deal with, and it hits so hard on this build. Really, really like this hybrid Warden. Okay, guys, so let's take a look at the champion points before the PTS boots me. We have got 31 in the Warlord, 11 in Sprinter, and 3 in Bashing Focus, with 1 in the Siphoner. Focus on Warlord because we got to break free. A little bit in Sprinting because we do need to sprint in PvP. It's important. A little Bash and a little Siphoner. We just had a point left over for Siphoner, and I put a little in Bash because you do have to Bash in PvP. Now, taking a look at the Lover Tree, huge focus here, Arcanist Mooncalf. And we didn't really go for the heavy attack return because we have a huge amount of sustain on this build already. You won't be pulling a lot of heavies with this spec at all, outside of just trying to deal more damage for the most part. The Mooncalf Arcanist, really nice. Huge sustains from both pools, very important. We get the Wind Running passive, which is nice. A little bit of health regen, magicka recovery while we're sprinting, and a little bonus movement speed. Taking a look at the Shadow Tree, we've got 48 Tumbling, 48 Shadow Ward, even split, medium armor, Greatsword, and Frost Staff. This is exactly what we want. We gotta block, we gotta roll. Both are very important for our survival on this build. Taking a look at our blue tree, the blue hybrid tree is always a fun one to go over. We're going to start in the Atronach because this is the great place to start on the hybrid tree. Master at Arms for direct damage increase. A lot of our attacks are direct damage, so this will increase a lot of our outgoing damage all over the board. Very good point passive for the hybrid. So we have 81 here, and then 25 physical, 14 staff. Bigger focus on physical because we have more penetration on this bar, as well as the Greatsword being our burst bar. So I wanted to favor it for the heavy attack, and of course the Greatsword heavy attack will splash too, but a little bit in Staff Expert because we didn't want to neglect it too much. Taking a look at the Apprentice Tree, 32 Elemental, 27 Spell Erosion. A few points in here just to give us that Spell Precision buff, of course, and bulk up our outgoing magic attacks, but not a lot of commitment in these trees simply because, well, we got a lot of coverage in here. And then in the Ritual Tree, we mirror what we did in our previous tree with Mighty Piercing. So we've got 32 Mighty, 28 Piercing, 1 extra penetration here because we had an odd point out, and then 31 in Thaum because we have a lot of damage over time, a lot of AoE fields, our ultimate, our Dawnbreaker smack. This is all damage over time, so our Thaum is going to be a great option for this too. The important passives that we get from this are the Tactician passive. This is going to help set an opponent off balance when we roll dodge. Very important because it will give you a really strong stun on this build, especially medium armor in the CP campaigns. Really nice to have. And then the next important passive we get is Exploiter for bonus damage against the off-balance opponent. Double whammy, especially on the hybrid, 10% flat damage increase across the board. Brilliant. Taking a look at the Steed Tree, we have stacked the crap out of it. 61 Ironclad, 50 Resistant, 39 Spell Shield, and 39 Medium Armor Focus. Lots into critical resist, very important for PvP. Lots into incoming direct damage reduction, very important yet again. A lot of burst is direct damage, and then an even split here just to give us good mixed bulk to our base bulk stats. In the Lady Tree, we got 23 Hardy, 23 Elemental, and 28 Thick Skin. Reduce incoming physical, magical, and damage over time with a focus on the damage over time because we don't have a Purge on this build. But we have Vines, which is a great counter to dots, but it needs to actively heal it away. So we lowered the dot damage, and Vines essentially becomes a better heal. And then in our Lord Tree, guys, we have got a whopping 7 in Quick Recovery for a little bit of extra healing power. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the build. Alright guys, so let's dive into a little bit of PvP commentary. So the first fight that we're going to show for you guys here is actually the first fight that I had on this build. And it's just going to showcase the bulk of this build. And I'm a little bit newer to this spec, so I'm just focusing on getting my heals down. There you see we get a great amount of damage with our Frost Fields into our ultimate on that guy. But I do not have the rest of my burst kit ready to put the damage in. But these guys are just putting a lot of pressure. And there you see the amount of healing power that Vines is going to do for us here. Lots of healing, that major mending it's going to give, the resource return. And every single time we take damage, Vines is going to heal us. And just look at how much healing power these guys are beating on us, and we can just kite the tree, and they're really struggling. Now, something that I'm doing here is making sure to use a lot of blocks in between my rolls, as well as using my rolls a lot for my defensive utility. We are a hybrid build, and we need to utilize all the different aspects of our defenses in order to fully take advantage of our kit. And as you guys can see here, just sitting on the same tree, we have been consistently able to tank these guys out. But now I decide I'm going to go for a little bit of a backup here. We nearly have the ultimate up, and I want to just spread them out to try to do a bit of a turn and burn here. So we're going to reset the fields that we've been setting before. These fields are very important just to help create some distance between you and your opponents as well. Get a really nice stun off on that guy, Subterranean Assault into the heavy attack while he's standing in the fields, and Permafrost. Down he goes. Massive burst coming out of that hybrid. And then I just back up a little bit here because I want to try to coax them a little bit into the field. But this Templar quickly goes for the res, and I take a nasty stun. So I am unable to stop the res. And now I've got to reset my fields here, and I'm just going to continue to tank these guys out. And as you guys can see here, we're doing a great job just making sure to keep our buffs up. If we keep those buffs up, we will have the sustain we need and the tank ability. Really nice combo on that guy there. Unfortunately, as we drop the combo, you see that my fields go away. Had we had the extra ticks on the field, I think we could have got him there with the execute at the end. But as you can see, these yellow are going to go really hard, drop their ultimates on us. We got a friendly red player that's coming in, and I'm just trying to hold my ground here. And the fight has kind of progressed to the point where look at these yellow are actually pushing off this hill, even though they've got the Atro here. But as you can see, there's a huge group of other players coming from the other side, some blue players. They get me with the Radiance, man. The yellow putting the pressure on, and down we go. So just a nice little view of the tank test on that build. A really great thing to try out on a new build, I think, is just to see that tank test. So let's see a little bit harder of a fight here. In this fight here, I do a much better job keeping my buffs up because I actually use my Lotus buff instead of not using it like I did in that last fight. And you guys will see the resource sustain that gives is nice as well. But in this fight here, we are on an enemy resource, and we are just having a 2v2 against a Stamina and a Magicka Sorcerer. And I just ran into this player here who is also on a Stam Sorc, so I'm the only guy on the Warden here. As you can see there, we're just kind of beating on the blue players until we've kind of paired off, and the Stam Sorcs decided to focus me while I focus him and the other players going for the Mag Sorc. Here you see I'm taking a lot of damage over time. I think at first I think this Sorc is doing a lot of damage to me, but then I realized the guard's actually shooting at me. So while I'm kiting on here, I'm just going to keep taking those nasty dots from that NPC. And there you see the Sork hits us with some nasty dots too, but we're just going to keep kiting on this stuff here. A big advantage that our build has being medium armor and a little bit faster, and also having access to a really strong snare kit, is that if we're fighting an opponent without a gap closer like this guy here, you can see he has a tough time staying on top of us, even in open field, because of the amount of distance and that we can make him have to cover in this field. There you see we take a nasty Dawnbreaker, but I just go into the block, roll out of it, and then go for my ultimate to counter on the Sork here. I decide to go for a Subterranean Assault, try to get a bit of damage into him, but this Stam Sork is very tanky, and I've seen a lot of very tanky kind of builds like this, the Troll King, the heavy armor, lots of heals over time and stuff like that, and I did fight them a lot on this build, and as you see in this fight here, it's not like we are at a disadvantage against him. He's just really bulky and has a lot of healing, but we also have a lot of healing. I think we have a little bit less bulk, but a little bit more healing power, and I actually think we probably do a little bit more damage than this guy does too. He's got a lot of poisons dealing damage here, but outside of his poisons, he's not putting out a lot of hurt unless he hits us with the burst. So against these tankier players, I did actually manage to do well on this build, and I think this was a great example. And here you see he gives up trying to attack me because he decides, okay, he's too bulky for me to kill. And I think it's a great example of this hybrid build actually excelling and being able to compete with some of these meta specs. And I think in the past, hybrid has really struggled against a more traditional meta spec, and this is the first time that I've really, you know, well, not really the first time, but this past year has been great for hybrids, and especially as this year's gone on. This patch is a really great patch, I think, to be playing hybrids. There you see we get a nasty permafrost stun. We go for the target synchro on the Magicka Sork there, and we bring him down. Really nice combo to bring him down here. And now we're going to put some damage into this guy. Nasty combo with the heavy attack, crit rush, Subterranean Assault, light attack, Executioner Bash. He goes for the combo on the friendly player, bringing him down, committing to his kill, and we manage to finish him off, taking home the win there. So really great fight to those two, and I wanted to show that particular fight because it was against much more experienced players, and you get to see what a hybrid build looks like if you're in a tough fight like that. So as you guys can see here, we are on this resource. This guy creeps up on us, and we go to attack him, but he responds right away by going into his Northern Storm, so he turns and burns us really good. However, after his ultimate's done, he's taken too much damage from the NPCs, not healing himself. I think he wasted his whole resource tank trying to survive the turn and burn there. However, we're just going to come back to the resource, take a Magnum Shot stun there, but we're just going to wait it out and set our fields down. Our big plan here is to not really overextend too much. I go for the Dawnbreaker trying to get some good damage, but we can't capitalize. I want to lure these Nightblades on top of the NPCs here. Now, these guys are going to soak up a lot of arrows for me, and if we can lure a Nightblade on top here, we can have him in our fields and hit him with a huge burst as well. And as you guys can see here, my plan works successfully. Here comes a Nightblade from the side, and we lure him onto the middle of the resource here, trap him in the dots. Oh my god, there's the Subterranean Assault. Wow, huge damage to bring that guy down. No chance. Here we see a blue player killing a couple of yellow players off. We go in to help him finish off the players. This blue player I'd run into a little earlier, and we had decided that we were friends, so we are just going to help each other finish off the yellow. Nasty Dawnbreaker burst on that player there. He had lower HP, and he's not safe. Even on the hybrid man, he's not safe. We are just going to burst him down with that Dawnbreaker. And now we just take a really nasty spike from these guys here as we try to kite out the Nightblade's burst, survive it, and overcomes the blue player. And we're just going to switch to this Sork here, get a really nice combo on him with the crit rush, Subterranean Assault, the Frost Staff heavy attack to lead that combo. Really nice combo, I think. Looks really cool to do. And this guy's very squishy. We get him with the same combo again, and then put the light attack Executioner Bash on the end. Full kill, 100 to 0. So beautiful. And down he goes. And we just make our way back towards the resource here. We open up on this Templar here, but he's fairly bulky. Both me and a friendly player that's shown up now are beating on him, and he's doing a great job tanking it out in mist form. The blue player has finished off his last yellow too, and he wants some of that. So I turn around and decide, okay, I'm going to focus on these yellow in the back here, and we see a very high rank Templar, and he goes into the mist form as soon as I jump on top of him here. And this guy is very bulky, and he's playing a healing focused Templar build, so he doesn't really turn and burn us very much. There you see we managed to get a great dodge off into the partially charged heavy When we get that off-balance stun and go for the Dawnbreaker, cheeky play, really style points, I think. However, he does react really well and heals himself, but he did not see that combo coming, so it was a really clean combo to hit him with. And there we see on this guy, I'm just making sure to watch whenever he turns to throw a projectile at me. Make sure that I dodge it. A big disadvantage that this build has is that if your opponent's not fighting back, it becomes harder to stun them because you can't dodge their attack. That is just the way it is with the kit that we have. You can change the kit, of course, to alleviate that if you want, but it's something that I make a point in my gameplay. There you see I go for the dodge, predicting he'll attack, but he does a resto heavy, and there we hit him with a really nasty burst, really clean burst combo. We almost catch him, but the Earth Gore is going to save him there, and he goes into the mist form, tries to go into sneak here, but we are not going to let him escape this. We continue to keep the pressure on him here, relaying those fields to snare him as often as we can as he retreats to the keep here. He tries to go for more resto heavies, but there you see that really big combo. Oh my god. The Frost Staff, partial charged heavy, subterranean crit rush, so beautiful yet again. And then finally, guys, we have a fight against this Nightblade here, and he shows up after we killed that guy, jumps around a bit, and then he decides that he wants to fight. So we have a nice one-on-one with this guy here. We set our combos and our fields. Here we go, Nightblade coming out of stealth. We block his attack, turn right away with our Subterranean Assault into crit rush. He goes back into stealth. We make sure... Oh, we don't get the block there. Bad job. Should have got that block there. However, we respond right away by going into our Permafrost. Get him with a nasty stun here. And he went for a double roll, and I'm pretty sure he was running a heavy armor build, so that's maybe why he didn't break that stun. He maybe didn't. He maybe went for the double roll, trying to escape my move there, but didn't have the resource he needed. So there you go, guys. We've got a little bit more fighting on this build, but that is all that we're going to commentate for you guys today. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, like I said, hit that like button, and if you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you guys want to catch live gameplay from me, you guys can always check me out on Twitch. If you guys want to see gameplay or just come chat, you can always check me out. A link to my Twitch, of course, is in the description below. If you guys want to submit any content, be it for a top 5 PvP battle feature, or you want to send in content to be featured as perhaps a build video for a build feature, you guys can send it to KristoferESO at hotmail.com. We are sponsored by What the Fast. They are a VPN for gamers. They are free to try. They give you better ping to your favorite games, and there's no credit card to sign up, so no harm, no foul if it doesn't work for you guys. So yeah, there we go. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. I had a really great time playing this build, and I'm actually really happy with how hybrids are shaping up. This, of course, was footage from the live server, and I did provide you guys with the PTS specs for this build. So this build will be better than the gameplay you saw here in the coming patch. So look forward to that, guys. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and we're going to go down fighting here, of course, because that's the only thing that we know how to do. I hope to see you guys again next time. Have a great night, everybody.